Would it really be fair to expect one of the least disciplined, sloppiest teams in the NFL to stop committing penalties just because you changed the head coach a few days ago? Probably not. I'm Glenn Naughton with Jet Nation Radio and JetNation.com. Be sure to log into JetNation.com where you can register and become a part of what is the most active Jets message board on the web. Jets let another one slip away. More sloppy football. Javon Kinlaw. Anybody else see Javon Kinlaw on the sidelines yucking it up, having the time of his life after he got that penalty? The first of 3 penalties on one series. Huge killer penalty, roughing the passer on Josh Allen. Jogs off the field and just chuckling, having a good laugh with I think it was Michael Clemens. No better time to joke around, right? When you may have just cost your team a football game. Then he gets a flag on the ensuing field goal, and then he gets a flag on on nothing, just running his mouth to the ref after the kick, or extra point. Sorry. So this is, I mean, look, if you've been around long enough, you know this is kind of the way things go. Jets just find a way to be terrible. New York Jets today, 11 penalties for 110 yards. That pretty much sums up the season. Can't put it together. Can't have an all-around effort where everyone shows up and everyone plays well. Mike Williams, I mean, guys just slipping and sliding all over the place. The Jets have the ball. They have a chance to go down and score. Aaron Rodgers takes a shot deep down the field. Mike Williams, I mean, he may have had a hard time locating the ball. Whatever it was, if he's able to stop and come back towards the ball, it's a catch, and the Jets are cooking. Instead, he falls, feet come out, slides, falls to the ground, and Buffalo gets an interception. Garrett Wilson dropped interception in the end zone, or dropped touchdown in the end zone. I mean, it was 6. It was a catch, right? It's in his hands, gets hit, ball comes out. 2 missed field goals for Greg Zuerlein. Austin Siebert, as I said to Dylan and Chris, I wonder what you would have to give Washington in a trade to get Austin Siebert, because that dude is pretty awesome. Listen, you can't kill the Jets on the Zuerlein thing. He was a stud last year, one of the stronger legs in the league, but I think it's in his head now. Talked about this on Gus Doon, actually, our good friend Gus, talked on his podcast before the Minnesota game about how Zuerlein was really kind of sliding by because he hadn't had any situations where he had to attempt a big kick. So the misses, people were like, big deal, didn't matter, didn't count. Yeah, it didn't count that day. But what happens when you need him to hit some big ones? And that's what Gus and I were saying. And since then, he's missed some big ones. So frustrating loss. Look, the penalties, again, ugly penalties. You clean up the penalties, you probably win that game. But it was nice to see, even at a loss. I get it, no moral victories, but maybe we can chill out with some of the maybe this team isn't good, or maybe this team doesn't have talent talk. They have talent, they're just undisciplined. Saw it from Garrett today, even with the drop. I believe he went over 100. Let's pull up the individual stats here. Garrett and Alan Lazard both go over 100. 107 for Garrett, 114 for Lazard. They both scored a touchdown. Props to Lazard on the Hail Mary. Who saw that coming? Let's see. Let's hop in the chat real quick. Jets are not a good football team. They're just not a disciplined football team. They've got talent, but they're just dumb. They do dumb things, and they laugh about it afterwards. Let's see. Justin says, time to put up the draft boards. Dude, I am literally hopping onto watching film for the next few hours. What is it? It's 5 a.m. Next couple hours. I'm gonna watch some film. I'm watching Michigan USC. Michigan's got some good DTs. Anyway, 11 for 110 at home. M makes that point. Accountability equals firing Zuerlein. Look, Chris Schubert said it in our chat. Me, him, and Dylan talking during the game, and he said, "It's time for a new kicker." And I said, "Let's pump the brakes." He missed at the windy end of the field, cut him some slack, and then he goes out and misses the other end. I'm like, all right, fine. Go ahead. Get rid of him. 2-4, you are what your record says you are. Absolutely. Agree in this case. Here's the thing. I mean, if they don't get the penalties cleaned up and they don't stop all the self-inflicted stuff, It's not going to matter. They're not going to win any games. However, if by some miracle they can stop shooting themselves in the foot, we saw today this team can move the ball a little bit. They can score some points, and win some games. But they've got us 110 yards in penalties at home. Absolutely unacceptable. Sean says, "How are there Jets fans anymore?" Ask myself. I asked them how this one is still around after all these years, Sean, all the time. 13 years, we have a collection of losers individually. Wait, where'd you go? Lost your comment. There we go. Individual talent, collectively bad news, and they got to get better. This is why Salah had to go. This is, I've been saying for a while now that the O-line, again, still, however you want to look at it, they said it during the broadcast. Lots of talented individual players on that O-line, but as Jets, they're playing like garbage, and this has been going on for years now. We've talked about the need to replace Keith Carter, which honestly, it's beyond frustrating at this point. Just taking a quick look. Yeah, Tyron Smith. Dylan said it. Dylan tweeted it out during the game. I had the thought the other day in my car because as I said, I spend way too much time thinking about this football team. But as I'm driving the other day and thinking about how bad Tyron Smith has been, I think to myself, can you get Bakhtiari? Can you get him to come in and at least kick the tires? Dylan mentioned that in our chat tonight or in a tweet tonight. I don't think the Jets are going to spend the money. Even as Rodgers' buddy, I don't see Bakhtiari saying, fine, I'll come in for vet minimum. And anything more than vet minimum, I don't think they're going to pay. We'll see. But something. But listen, as I tweeted out, name me the veteran player who came to play for this team and got better, and name me the guy who left and got worse. Everyone leaves and gets better. Everyone shows up. I would say Morgan Moses is the only guy who stays about the same. He's good as a Jet. He's good anywhere else. Laken Tomlinson, Pro Bowler to trash pile. Tyron Smith, I get it. He's a little older, but the guy gave up 2 sacks last year. He's given up 5 or 6 this year. He's going to give up 20 sacks this year. Oh, yeah, okay, fine. Maybe he lost a step. 20 steps? And I bet you he'll go play somewhere next year and he'll be better again. Mekhi Becton, playing guard for the Eagles. Not setting the world on fire, but not the disaster he was here. It's just what they do with offensive linemen. John Simpson, I'd say we haven't seen the holds from him. He may be, but we did say, let's wait and see. Because when you have a Lamar Jackson who's constantly taking off and running and you don't know where he is, you're going to draw some more holds. So we said, let's see when he gets here if the holds are an issue. So far they're not, and he's been a nice player. Let's see. John Pfeiffer says, we suck again. Yes, they do suck again. Ashton Davis was terrible. GM Island Empire says Ashton played well inside runs. With Brees works better. But in coverage, Ashton Davis was terrible. But the holding call, yeah. Tyron Johnson. All of it was disgusting in terms of the penalties. There was DJ Reed. There may have been 1 or 2 on him that were ticky-tack. How about Sean McDermott, by the way? And listen, they won the game. Fine. Enjoy it. Sean McDermott, late in the game, is doing the ball wasn't catchable when there's a flag on a Bills player. How about the flag on DJ Reed when the ball ended 7 yards out of bounds? I didn't see Sean McDermott doing that then. That was a legit call. That was good. It was good when you do it that way, but I don't like it the other way. Dude, just be quiet. You got a call on a ball that landed in the 83rd row. Let's see. Yeah, this is you got Pittsburgh next week. That defense against this O-line. Good luck. Jets could be looking 2-5 right in the face. Justin says, how would this team do against King Henry in the not good, man. They can't stop the run. I think said the other day, Quentin Jefferson was inactive for Cleveland. Maybe, and listen, the Bengals season is over. I mean, I don't even know if the Jets are going to bother calling anyone to make any trades. Do you even go get Devontae now? Do you call the Bengals and say, I mean, I guess they won, so they can feel like they're back in it at 2-4. But if the Jets are out of it at 2-4, and are they out of it? It feels like it. Put it that way. It feels like they're out of it. Spoiler alert: this team will never win a Super Bowl in your lifetime. Yeah, I think deep down we all know that. But here's the thing, and I say it all the time that I fall back into the trap of being a fan and having hope when really you shouldn't when you're a Jets fan. But geez, I just feel like you got to have a hobby. You got to have something you enjoy. And if you can't tune out the misery of being a Jets fan, then I don't I don't think it's good for you to be a fan of this team, regardless. But if you can't be a little excited about adding, Aaron Rodgers and exciting young players, if that can't get you a little bit excited, and again, this is penalties. This is that Garrett Wilson drop touchdown killer. Flags were killers. Spoiler that we read. Let's see. Defense can't stop the run. Yeah, it's bad. It really is against the run. And I think I did say during the preseason, whatever training camp, my biggest concerns were coaching and the defense up the middle, specifically the O line or the D line, the interior D line. But I was a little bit worried about Mosley being long in the tooth, and I was a little bit worried about the unproven players at safety. And all of those things have hurt them in one way or another so far this season. Austin says should have kept Salah, got rid of Hackett. Penalties on defense and missed field goals are the story here. They are, but I think. Listen, I never wanted Hackett hired. This is one of those things where, like it or not, he ain't going. That's Aaron's guy. Even when they moved on from him, they let him keep a job and collect a check because that's Aaron's guy. Where's Quentin Williams these days? He did have a sack, only a couple tackles. Look, Quentin is a guy who's good enough to draw a bunch of double teams, but not good enough to beat double teams. What does that make you? Like, you can't tell me the guy sucks, because if he sucked, you wouldn't have to double team him. You could single team him. Hell, leave him unblocked the way some people talk about him. But if Quentin Williams was as bad as some people say, there would be no need to double team him. He is the 5th or 6th most double teamed lineman in the entire NFL, gets double teamed on 60% of snaps. So offensive coordinators think he's a threat, but the problem is if you double him, he's not. And he makes enough money where he should be, because there are guys who beat double teams. You just don't see it from Quentin. No more Adams, Devontae. Of course, I would imagine you move off of that. Kinlaw had the trifecta. I don't think he didn't get kicked out. They said the first penalty was the first that would get him kicked out for the conduct. Tom says 5-12. That's not going to happen, Tom. They're going to win. They're going to win games. They're just not going to. They're unlikely to win enough to win. They're unlikely to win enough to make the playoffs. And I said even a couple weeks ago, even last week, I think that I thought they'd make it. But if the penalties magically went away, I think they make the playoffs. But I don't see that happening. This is a culture. This is years of sloppy, undisciplined play. How long does it take you to get that out of their system? Well, we know it takes more than 4 or 5 days, but you had to know that was true. Should have been benched. I'm assuming you mean Kinlaw. I agree. I see the connection with Wilson and Aaron. It was nice to see them cook today a little bit. There were definitely some good things to take from this game, but it's just the ugly flags, and the untimely. You can point to the Garrett Wilson drop touchdown, the Mike Williams slipping and falling. Those are turning points. JD needs to go. I don't put penalties on the GM. I don't put drop touchdowns that hit you in the hands on the GM. This is, guys got to be more disciplined. Only game that matters is 12-29. I'll tell you what, top of my head, no idea what game that is. No idea. Offense looked much different, but the penalties stand out much more. Exactly. Island, that's the problem. 11 penalties over 100 yards. Um, you can't start 5 linemen who never played together and expect different results. Well, I'm not sure. I mean, they had different results tonight from what they've had all year, Tony. If you mean penalties, that's a different story. The trenches, we aren't a dominant team either way. Again, I think tonight was much better than it has been in recent weeks. No flow when the refs call penalty. What was it? 20? I think both teams had 10 accepted penalties, or 11. Or both teams, I think, had more than 10 accepted penalties, but they definitely had 10. Let's see. Got the run game going. Yeah, it was good to see. It was a positive, but again, at 2-4, it's all this just going to be window dressing. We'll have to see. We got slow bounces on the D line. Got to make an example. Cut Clemens or Kinlaw. And another thing Dylan Terman posted was the message he sent to us. And I was literally sitting there explaining it to my son, telling him, all right, like I always say, he's 10, he's learning the game. I'm explaining to him, Jets have one more chance if they get the stop here. They'll have to stop the Bills 3 times, but they like to use the quarterback to run a lot. So you got to watch out for that. And this, just as I'm saying that, Dylan Terman tweets to me and Chris Schubert, Josh Allen draw coming up. They're gonna seal it with that. And that's exactly what Buffalo does. And the Jets bite. Michael Clemens bites. Allen gets outside. Game over. Ken says Ulbrich's a head coach, officially a head coach. His response to every question is having to watch the tape. Boring, isn't it? But that's like across the league. Coaches don't call players out anymore, and it's all about watch the film, have to see what went wrong, which there's obviously some truth to. Oh boy, we'll get that fixed, Jeff Ulbrich says in regards to the Jets' run defense. Where have I heard that before? I'm sure somebody else said that. It's not good enough. We have to take a hard look at the tape. Yeah, there you go. Hard look at the tape. Everyone loves watching tape. And again, there is some truth to it. There's so much going on. It's not like he's got a eye in the sky view of everything that's happening. Let's see. How soon can we start playing Jordan Travis? I say don't play. If you're going to play Jordan Travis, maybe the last couple games of the year. Give that dude damn near a full season of watching NFL quarterbacks operate, prepare, practice. Be in Tyrod's ear on the sideline, be in Aaron's ear in practice, at Aaron and Tyrod, practice meetings, all that stuff. Let this dude learn, and don't rush him. We've seen where that gets them. Don't blame Ulbrich. He got on a moving train. Yeah, I'm not blaming him at all. I started it by saying, I started this recap by saying, is it realistic to expect a coach to take a sloppy, undisciplined group of players and make them disciplined in 4 days? Just not going to happen. No interior, no high IQ players, too soft. It does seem like that against the run, doesn't it? Ken Peters, I miss Ray Lucas on SNY post-game on nights like this. So what Ken means by that, for those of you who aren't local and who didn't have a chance to watch Ray Lucas, former Jet and Dolphin quarterback, would be ripping the Jets a new one after games like this when they embarrass themselves. And that's what they did. Look, they had a chance to win. There were points in the game where I got excited, but tell you what, that first drive where they just ran it right down the Jets' throats and they had no answer for it, and they were able to go the distance of the field without having to face a single third down. Just crazy stuff. Let's see. Coaching, we're by no means out of this thing. Ulbrich, mathematically 2-4, you're not. Especially as the season winds on. If again, there are teams like Buffalo's a perfect example, who already have a couple more losses than people thought they would at this point in the season. Here's the problem. You need to go on a run. You have the talent to go on a run. Do you have the discipline to go on a run? I don't know that they do. I don't think they do. So We'll keep watching, we'll keep rooting, we'll keep hoping, and they'll probably keep losing. But let's go over the numbers real quick. Aaron Rodgers, best game as a Jet. It's so stupid because it's just an aesthetics thing. But I do wish he'd thrown for 300 because all the people are like, oh, you can't do, he hasn't thrown for 300 yards and X amount. All right, well, he threw for 296. And how many drops, right? You had the Garrett drop, you had the Rucker. I mean, the Rucker one was tough because that was, I mean, he got hit in the chest and the back simultaneously as the ball arrived. But either way, on the ground, what a show. Brees Hall. I mean, run game come back to life. 18 carries for 113. That's 6.3 a carry. Braylon Allen, almost no action on the ground, 3 carries for 8. Then through the air, Lazard goes 6 for 114 and a touchdown. Garrett Wilson, 8 for 107 and a touchdown. Then you had Brees 5 for 56, Conklin 2 for 10, and Ruckert 2 for 7. Defensively, 13 tackles for Jamie and Sherwood, 9 for Ashton Davis, who was quite bad today. Tony Adams had 8, Brandon Eccles 4. Let's go sacks. We had Quinnen Williams, who I mentioned earlier, and Will McDonald gets his, 6th, 7th of the year. So Will McDonald just humming right along. Only 1 punt return for Xavier Gibson for 8 yards. Zerline, 2 for 4. 2 for 4 kicking field goals. Thomas Morstead, 2 punts for 96, average of 48. Team numbers, Jets threw for 272. Again, that's the total passing, total rushing 121, 6.7 yards per play, 19 first downs. What was time of possession? Damn near down the middle. Jets 30-17, Buffalo 20. So the Jets held it for 17, 30 some seconds more than Buffalo did. So 10, 20, 34. Total plays 56. I mean, a lot of stuff was pretty even. Sacks allowed. Jets allowed 3. Buffalo allowed 2. Penalties, 11 for 110 for the Jets, 11 for 94 for Buffalo. Neither team lost a fumble. As I mentioned, the Rodgers interception late. And then look, the score, 3 points, separated by 3 points. So there was a lot of stuff. Let's see. Didn't Allen rush for over 20? Somebody says. I'm looking at the box score here. What does it say? Player stats, Braylon Allen. This is Braylon Allen, 3 for 8. Hang on. Maybe I just pulled this up. It should be up to date. Let me see if it didn't refresh. No, 3 for 8. That's what this says. This is on whatever. I just Googled the box score. And it's got Allen 3 for 8. So 8, 18, whatever it may be. Ashton Davis, look, Davis has been disappointing. He bounced back last year. He played probably his best ball as a pro last season, but we did ask, is it a fluke? Is it an aberration? Good idea to give him a 1-year deal and bring him in and find out. It appears it was a fluke and an aberration, and they should be looking to replace him. Let's see, just taking a look. Let's take a look at Buffalo here. Josh Allen, 19 of 25 for 215, 2 touchdowns. Ray Davis, rookie out of Kentucky, good player. 20 for 97, that's 4.8. Jets just couldn't stop him. Ty Johnson, who the Bills always like to give him a few carries against the Jets to do some damage, and he always seems to. 4 carries for 34. Josh Allen ran it 9 times for 18 and a touchdown. Through the air, though, Jets DBs clamped down. Ray Davis, Dalton Kincaid, those are the leading receivers. Keon Coleman, 3 for 26. Curtis Samuel, 3 for 44. Khalil Shakir, 2 for 19. So a shame there. It's a shame that the Jets, those DBs do a good job, but the D line not so much. Again, if you're Joe Douglas, even if you want to make a move, does ownership allow it? There seems to be ownership that is holding up the Devontae Adams thing. Ownership that probably, well, you can't say holding up the Reddick thing because they did come to terms on a deal. Reddick, getting him back now. This, and I said earlier when news broke that Reddick might be coming because Rosenhaus is involved now, I said that the Reddick situation, one thing that made it not sting quite so badly is that they had yet to lose a game that I felt they would have won if he was playing. And tonight that might apply too, but that last play where it's like, would Reddick have sniffed that Allen run? Because you kind of felt like it was coming, and Michael Clemens bit and allowed him to get outside for the first down. Does that happen if it's Reddick? I don't know. It's it's just one play. That's Kev. I had the same thought, man. Especially having been at the game last week. Kev says, funny how throwing to Mike Williams leads to game-ending plays. That's 2 weeks in a row, folks, that Aaron called his number on what would have been a game-winning drive, and the ball was picked off. Last week, he didn't fight for it. I didn't feel like he did. He allowed himself to get out-muscled and pushed out of the way. And then this week, he just falls. So that was not good. I think Alan Rushtat has an error because he had 15 rush arms. I guess that's meant to be yards before he had that last run for 8. It could be. The Cricks. Like I said, I'm looking at. I just Googled the box score and clicked on it, and this is what it gave me. Everything. I know the Rodgers numbers are right. 294 and 2 touchdowns. That might even was he 296? Either way, doesn't matter. So, new head coach, new offensive coordinator. Offense did look better. Moved the ball, scored on the opening drive. Breece Hall, that opening drive. What are you thinking trying to catch the ball with one hand? Ended that drive prematurely. I thought that was a bit of a shame. We saw ugly. Allen had 8. Yeah, I guess we're still talking about Braylon. Ugly, sloppy tackling, not wrapping up. Breece not using both hands to catch the ball. Some early things that kind of got under my skin a little bit. And the Jets settled down in that. I mean, God, if they kept giving up runs like they did on that opening drive, they'd have given up 500 yards rushing. So they settled a little bit, but they did get Buffalo, again, luckily Buffalo was pretty undisciplined too when they handed the Jets some penalties. But in the end, none of it really mattered. Might it matter in the long term? Like if this means that the running game is on track now and Rodgers is going to be a guy who throws, puts up 275, between 275 and 300 and a couple touchdowns, that would obviously be a great situation. Let's see. Rodgers. This is funny. I actually mentioned this. It was the vibe I got when I was watching the game with my son and I was explaining the roughing the passer rule and the call on, let's see, when Rodgers was explaining, or when I was explaining the call, the roughing the passer call, Aaron Rodgers looked like he was looking at Buffalo and saying, guys, that's like sympathizing with them. And here's a quote from Rodgers at his postgame presser from Connor Hughes talking about the penalties. It seemed a little ridiculous. Some of them seemed really bad, including the roughing the passer on me. That's not roughing the passer. I mean, by rule it is, but it is a dumb rule. Rodgers with serious criticism for both sides of the ball. Let's see. Yeah, the Bill Belichick, of course, ripped Woody Johnson, saying on the Manning cast, that's kind of what it's been like with the Jets. Barely won over 30% the last 10 years. The owner being the owner, just ready, fire, aim. Saying, obviously, he did not agree with the decision to let Robert Saleh go. Mike Williams being evaluated for a head injury. It did look like a possible knee to the head on that interception. Let's see. Breece finally did better tonight. Yeah. Okay, Scott. How are we doing, Scott? Scott Scoop has recently joined the team at Jet Nation, contributing some articles to us. So check that out. Check those out. Patchwork O-line. I mean, it's not really a patchwork. They're playing like a patchwork O-line, but you're supposed to be better up front. Cut Clemens and Davis to send a message. Can't say I would hate that move. But I think Clemens, I think they like him more than the fans do, and he's pretty safe. But we'll see. Salah's gone. So we'll see what happens there. No happy days in Jet Nation. Glenn, completely unreal for the third straight week. This game ended with Rodgers not coming through. Might be time to call it. Well, yes and no, Chris. I mean, does he come through if Mike Williams keeps his feet? And the previous week, if Mike Williams doesn't get out muscled? He's putting the ball up there, and as crazy as it is, 2 weeks in a row, puts it up to the same guy, and both times it ends in a turnover. You had the Ruckert drop earlier in the drive, so Rodgers was making the reads, making the throws. I mean, Mike Williams is wide open. When that ball is at its peak, and I'm looking at Mike Williams, I'm like, this is a big gainer. There's no defenders there, and then he slides, falls, defender shows up, and if Mike Williams is what 6'2", 6'3". If he stays upright and comes 1-2 steps back to the ball, that's his. Nobody's gonna get it. But that was that. Let's see. Flow through says play of the game is when Brees had that long run at the sideline and failed to cut to beat the safety and get in the end zone. That was big too. That was I was a little bit surprised the way that play unfolded. It was nice to see the big run, but I was a little bit surprised that Brees didn't cut back inside and get in the end zone. So that was there were mistakes again, miscues. So that's that's the story of this team this year. Shooting themselves in the foot, whether it's drops that there were a bunch of drops tonight. There were a bunch of penalties. Again, 2 missed field goals. So every which way the Jets could hurt themselves, they hurt themselves. But getting back to Chris's comment, what he's saying about, is it time to call it with Rodgers? Call out his play tonight, probably not the night to do it. But we're pointing fingers everywhere else. And there have been some situations where the communication doesn't seem to be there. And it's like, is that on him? Is that on the receiver? I don't know, but they got to get it fixed. They got to get it fixed. And if they don't, it's another lost season. Rodgers getting beat up at this rate. You think he's coming back? He's not coming back. M says, I hate this for us. It's really hard being a Jets fan. It is. Look, it is, but almost I feel like once you're past a certain age, M, I don't know how old you are, but I feel like I've been a fan of this team long enough that I know what it means, and I know what it comes with, and here I am. I'm not saying I don't feel your pain. Chris says he meant in terms of whether this team going anywhere this season, if they can't win these games that he's been brought. Yeah, okay, that I agree with, and they, the point I said earlier, Chris. I don't know if you just tuned in. If they don't get things cleaned up, they're not going to win games. You're not going to get 100 yards and penalties and beat teams. It's just not going to happen. You can't miss 2 field goals and drop a touchdown in the end zone like Garrett Wilson did. You can't leave double-digit points on the board in this league where so many games are determined by one score. So that's what the Jets did tonight. They dropped the touchdown. They missed a couple field goals. As we just said, there was the questionable decision by Brees to head toward the sideline instead of cut inside toward the end zone. So there were opportunities there to score, but obviously didn't happen. Scott asks, do we worry about losing Garrett Wilson, Brees Sauce if we don't make the playoffs? No, they're all still under contract. They're all, I mean, listen, is there a world in which Joe Douglas gets fired and Woody Johnson brings in a new GM who just says, let me trade 1 or 2 of these guys and add some first-round picks? I mean, I guess it's possible. But if Douglas stays, which again, Woody said the other day, and I'm old enough, I've been following sports long enough that I know that owners and coaches, everybody in the organization, above the players, will say things that aren't true, that are disingenuous, blowing smoke. Oh, this guy's my guy, and you fire him the next week. I love this player, and then you bench him. Guys lie. It comes with the territory. But when the praise is effusive, I tend to pay a bit more attention to it. Scott says more like the Elijah Moore. I think if Garrett Wilson was upset enough and he complained loudly enough, maybe they move him. But otherwise, he's a foundational piece I think you build around. But the point I was making with Joe Douglas, I mentioned this the other day, Woody Johnson, and talking with the media after firing Robert Saleh, did say that he believes this is the most talented team he's had in his 25 years as an owner. If Woody Johnson truly believes that, I think it would be really strange to fire the guy who built it. And I think people who hate Joe Douglas are like, no. Here's why it would make sense. No, there's no world in which that makes sense. It might happen. And Woody might be lying, in which case, fine. But I happen to agree with that statement. I think there is a ton of talent on this team. I think we saw some of that shine through tonight. But what there is not on this team is disciplined play, smart, disciplined football. So if they played smart, disciplined football, they have enough talent that I think they'd be, 5-1 right now. But they don't play smart, disciplined football, so they're 2-3. So at the end of the season, does Woody Johnson sit down and say, "Well, we failed, but I love the talent. I think this is the best team I've had. So I'm going to keep the guy on who built it, and we're going to hire a new guy to guide it." We'll have to see. Jets were lucky it was close. Hail Mary is crazy. Roughing penalty led to 3. Bills missed a field goal, an extra point, and the other stuff. They were lucky it was a 3-point game. Gave it away. They almost stole one. But again, when you're in position, John, to win the game and you're dropping touchdowns, you're giving it away. Especially, some of the questionable call. And as I just said, Rodgers just acknowledged there were questionable calls on both sides. But you're giving Buffalo PI calls when the ball's landing, outside of the thick white, the thick part of the white, not just out of bounds like the white line that demarcates you're out of bounds now, but the thick white line, and it's on the far side of that. Passes that are nowhere near catchable, and you're throwing flags. So I wonder if a new GM would trade Brees, says M. Who knows? Listen, new GM comes in, all bets are off. You would imagine that you want to keep all your talented players, but I would not be surprised if I wouldn't be surprised if one of the big name young guys gets dealt in exchange for a first rounder. But we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully the discipline does come and they reel off some wins here and get things going in the right direction. This upcoming game against the Steelers, I can see this being like a 5-3 game. Seriously, that Steelers defense is awesome. That Steelers quarterback is not. He can run it and make the odd throw. He's an NFL quarterback. You let him throw it 25, 30 times. A couple of them are going to look good. But I tuned in and out of that game the other day, and I'm just seeing series where, it's like balls just flying. Like, receivers, just no chance. So with this Jets secondary and that quarterback not being able to throw it, and Justin Fields, of course, is what I'm talking about, and with the Jets having some speedy linebackers like Sherwood and Quincy Williams, maybe you can limit the damage he does if he's your focal point, if you feel like you don't have to worry about the pass. Josh Allen, totally different ball game. He can run and he can sling it. Justin Fields can run like a running back, but he's not the most accurate passer. So we'll see what happens next week. We will be live throughout the week as stories break. I'm sure we will at some point have some news with Hassan Reddick. Devontae Adams, I'm not so sure. I don't think the Jets are going to be in that now. Well, again, who knows what's going on inside that building? Who knows what ownership thinks right now? They can't be happy. They shouldn't be happy. Ugly, sloppy football game. 11 flags, 100 penalties. Too many miscues to overcome. Have a good one, Jets fans.